What happens when an entire country loses power in a single instant? One second, Havana is alive with engines, voices, and music. The next, the city disappears into darkness. Elevators stop. Water pumps fall silent. Refrigerators begin to warm. Across the capital, phone screens become flashlights. Candles appear beside coffee pots. A mechanic crawls beneath a 60-year-old Chevrolet, determined to finish one last repair. In a hospital, a generator fights to keep essential machines running. No one knows exactly when the electricity will return. For millions of Cubans, the questions come quickly. How long will the food remain safe? Will there be water by morning? Can families cook? Will buses run? And what happens to those who cannot afford a generator, fuel, or solar panels? Yet behind one darkened window, dominoes strike a wooden table. Farther down the street, a trumpet begins to play. Cuba is often described as a country frozen in time, a land of classic cars, faded mansions, and music drifting through warm Caribbean streets. But those images reveal only the surface. Behind them is a nation facing shortages, failing infrastructure, and a generation forced to make difficult choices about its future. So when electricity, fuel, and familiar systems fail, what keeps Cuba moving? To find the answer, we must enter the streets before the lights return. Morning returns slowly over Havana Bay. From above, the city appears almost untouched. Church towers rise above terracotta roofs. Sunlight reaches the seawall. Plaza Vieja opens beneath rows of balconies painted blue, yellow, and coral. But at street level, a different picture appears. A restored mansion stands beside a building held together by cracked stone, timber supports, and years of careful repair. New solar panels face the Caribbean sun, while old electrical lines cross above streets where people wait for fuel. Here, the past does not sit behind glass. It remains part of every journey, every home, and every decision. Cuba's position made it valuable long before the modern nation existed. Set near the entrance to the Gulf of Mexico and less than 200 kilometers from the United States, the island offered powerful ports, fertile land, and control over major sea routes. Empires fought to possess it. Fortresses guarded its harbors. Sugar and tobacco created great fortunes, while enslaved Africans paid the human cost of that wealth. From indigenous roots, Spanish rule, and African survival came a culture found nowhere else. Cuban, in its language, faith, food, rhythm, and sense of belonging. Then came wars for independence, foreign influence, dictatorship, and the Revolution of 1959. Each period promised a new future. Each left another layer across the island. Today, Cuba faces another defining test. United States sanctions restrict trade and finance. Fuel remains scarce. Power stations and transmission systems have aged. Tourism has weakened. Inflation has reduced what salaries can buy. Low production, slow administration, and government policy failures deepen the pressure. No single cause explains the crisis, and no simple answer can solve it. The postcard shows what Cuba has preserved. The streets reveal what its people must rebuild, replace, and create each morning. And that story begins with something small enough to fit inside a cup. A spoon taps the edge of a coffee cup, and Havana begins to wake. Inside one crowded household, 3 generations share the morning. A grandmother measures coffee into a stovetop cafetera. Her daughter checks the water stored in plastic containers. Nearby, a young adult prepares for another day while quietly weighing a larger question: whether a future can still be built here. The coffee rises, dark and strong. It is poured into small cups and shared before anything else is done. In Cuba, coffee is more than a drink. It is a greeting, a pause, and an invitation to talk. Outside, windows open across the neighborhood. Voices travel between balconies. A broom brushes dust from a doorway. Children adjust their uniforms, while a street vendor calls out what he has managed to find that morning. Private life quickly moves into public view. In Havana's solares, several families may share one courtyard, one entrance, and sometimes one water source. People know who needs medicine, whose child requires watching, and which neighbor can repair a broken fan. This closeness comes from tradition, but it also comes from need. When supplies are limited and services fail, the people living nearest to you often become the first help available. Breakfast is almost ready when the family discovers that one planned ingredient is missing. There is no dramatic reaction. The menu simply changes. Bread is divided into smaller pieces. Another ingredient is borrowed. What cannot be found is replaced by what remains. This small adjustment reflects a much larger pattern. In Cuba, the first answer is rarely, "We have it." The more important question is, how can we resolve it? That question shapes meals, transport, work, and nearly every household decision. Yet each solution has a limit, and every substitution leads to another search. The ration book closes. Across the street, the shelves of the neighborhood bodega are waiting. The ration book opens at the neighborhood bodega. Introduced in the early 1960s, the Libreta de Abastecimiento promised every household access to basic food at subsidized prices. Rice, beans, sugar, oil, and coffee were measured, recorded, and distributed through local stores. But today, the book does not guarantee that every item will arrive or that it will arrive on time. A shopkeeper weighs a small portion of rice on an old scale. Behind him, several shelves remain empty. At the agricultural market, prices are written by hand and changed when supplies fall. Inside private shops, imported food is easier to find, but often priced far beyond what an ordinary state salary can comfortably cover. Some families receive money from relatives abroad. Others depend only on what they earn inside Cuba. The difference can be seen in a shopping bag. Back in the kitchen, garlic and onions strike the hot pan. Their scent fills the room. Steam rises from a pot of beans, while slices of plantain darken and caramelize in oil. Cuban food remains rich in memory and flavor, but recipes now follow availability. Pork may replace beef. One vegetable stands in for another. A meal planned in the morning may look completely different by evening. The rice container is nearly empty. A metal cup scrapes against its bottom. At the table, conversation pauses as the food is divided. No one announces that the portions are smaller. No one needs to. Outside, street vendors offer small pizzas, churros, and cold guarapo to people searching for something quick and affordable. The ration system was built around a promise of shared access. But what does equality mean when one family receives dollars from abroad and the family next door does not? For now, the question remains at the table. A cooking pot closes with a sharp metallic clatter. Across Havana, the same sound comes from the hood of an old car. The metal strike comes again. this time from the hood of a Chevrolet older than the man repairing it. Its chrome still catches the sun. Its paint still turns heads. But this car is not here for photographs. By morning, it must carry workers across Havana. The mechanic listens before he touches anything. A knock from the engine, a loose belt, a vibration beneath the steering column. He knows the car by sound because original parts disappeared decades ago. When something fails, he cannot simply order a replacement. He must reshape, combine, or rebuild what he can find. Then the hood opens. Beneath the famous American body is a machine assembled across countries and generations. One part comes from an old truck. Another was adapted in a neighborhood workshop. Wires have been rerouted by hand. A metal bracket has been cut to fit. The body may be American, the engine may be European or Asian, and the solution is unmistakably Cuban. Across the city, these cars are known as almendrones. Some serve tourists in polished convertibles. Others work as colectivos, shared taxis carrying several passengers along fixed routes. People squeeze inside while crowded buses pass full stops. Electric motorcycles move quietly beneath new solar panels, offering a glimpse of another kind of transport. Yet fuel remains scarce, so every trip has a price. Drivers must calculate distance, passengers, repairs, and the fuel needed to return home. The mechanic lowers the hood and turns the key. The engine coughs once, then again. For a moment, the street waits. The third attempt brings it to life, rough, uneven, and loud. Its rhythm changes beneath the city noise. A knock becomes a beat. The beat becomes a conga, and Havana begins to move. The engine's rough rhythm becomes the strike of claves. Under a Havana balcony, a tres guitar answers. Maracas shake, bongos enter. Soon, the street is moving to son cubano, music shaped by Spanish melodies and African rhythm. It has carried love, humor, protest, and neighborhood news for generations. It is more than entertainment. It is memory, set to sound. In a nearby courtyard, rumba gathers people into a circle. At night, salsa fills crowded dance floors. Faith follows a similar path. Catholic saints appear inside churches, while Afro-Cuban traditions honor the orishas through prayer, music, and private ceremony. Different histories meet without losing their names. At a wooden table, domino tiles land with sharp force. 4 players study every move. Partners communicate without speaking. They remember what has been played, watch every reaction, and wait for one mistake. Then laughter breaks the tension. The music rises again. Suddenly, all sound disappears. A musician looks down at his phone. A message has arrived from a relative living abroad. For a moment, the street feels different. Cuba's traditions remain powerful, but many of the young people carrying them are asking whether their future lies somewhere else. A final domino tile touches the table. Its white rectangle fills the screen, then becomes a glowing smartphone. Morning mist rests beneath the limestone towers of Viñales. Oxen move slowly across red soil, while farmers begin work among tobacco seedlings. This is one of Cuba's most famous landscapes, but it is also a working community where each harvest supports homes, guides, drivers, and small businesses. A Cuban cigar begins here, long before it reaches a rolling table. It begins with the seed, the condition of the soil, and the timing of the rain. After harvest, each leaf is dried, sorted, and judged by its color, texture, strength, and moisture. That knowledge is passed from one generation to the next. Inside a curing barn, tobacco leaves hang in long rows. Later, a skilled torcedor selects the filler, wraps the binder, and finishes the cigar with one clean outer leaf. Every movement affects how it burns and how it tastes. In earlier factories, readers once filled the long working hours with newspapers, novels, and political writing. The workers shaped cigars, while stories filled the room. Beyond the farms, rivers pass beneath limestone caves, and family homes sit among small fields. Tourism brings guests to these farms, trails, and homestays. But Cuba received fewer than 2 million international visitors in 2026, nearly 18% fewer than the year before. When visitors disappear, the loss reaches far beyond hotels. A farmer studies the leaves, then looks toward the younger members of his family. Will they continue this work, or search for another life elsewhere? A tradition survives only when someone believes it offers a future, not merely a beautiful past. Tobacco smoke rises through the barn. It slowly becomes morning mist above a distant wetland. Dawn reaches the Malecon. Fishermen prepare their lines as windows open across Havana. Children return to the street with a football. The repaired taxi starts again, and a family restaurant lifts its doors for another day. Life continues, but the questions remain. In Viñales, farmers walk back into the fields. Morning light crosses Trinidad's old cobblestones. At the airport, one family holds a final embrace before another departure. These moments belong to the same Cuba, a country shaped by pride and loss, control and enterprise, deep roots and constant movement. Cuba is neither a romantic paradise, untouched by modern life, nor a nation defined only by hardship. It is a society negotiating its history, sovereignty, and identity, while families face scarcity, migration, and rapid economic change. Cuba is called a time capsule because the past remains visible. But a capsule is sealed. Cuba is not sealed. It is breathing, arguing, leaving, returning, repairing, and changing, sometimes faster than the world notices. The real story is not that Cubans live in the past. It is that they are being asked to create tomorrow with tools inherited from yesterday. A coffee cup rests beside an open window. The ration book closes. A mechanic wipes oil from his hands. A domino tile strikes the table, and a musician looks toward the crowd before the next song begins. Each image now carries a deeper story. Tobacco leaves hang inside a quiet barn. A solar panel faces the morning sun. Along the coast, a young Cuban looks across the water, wondering what comes next. Behind the balconies, classic cars and Caribbean color are millions of private decisions. What to repair, what to share, what to endure, what to change, and whether to stay. Havana begins to glow as electricity returns, though some streets remain dark. Cuba is not simply a destination. It is a question still being answered. Subscribe for documentaries that go beyond the postcard and show how people truly live. And tell us in the comments, is Cuba a time capsule or a country creating its future in real time? A vintage taxi moves along the Malecon at sunrise. It leaves the frame. Life continues.